Hello. Let me put in my headphones for this one. Oh, hello everyone. Today's Wednesday. I'm super excited to welcome you to my newest series, my live series. I see my guest has joined on in. This is called She Leads Live. And so I am going to be having guest speakers, entrepreneurs, leaders coming on here to talk with you, to inspire you deeper into your empowerment, to support you as a woman. Even if you're a man, this will benefit you as well, but particularly to support women and stepping into their fullest potential and leading with an open heart, with authenticity, and with purpose. So with that being said, I'm going to welcome my guest today up on the stage. This is Kehla G. We're waiting. There she is.
Hello. It is loading.
Hello, sister. What's up?
Hi. Oh, I'm so excited. This is going to be such a fun conversation. Diving into the Venus sequence, the gene keys.
I'm excited too. You and I recently did a super epic podcast together, which is going to be dropping soon. I'm really excited for people to tune into that. But super stoked today to have you on to talk a little bit more deeply about gene keys, about what it is, how it can help you. And you and I serve a lot of similar community around women who are in business and who are stepping into their passions, into their purpose, and doing it from a place of heart and soul alignment.
Yes, I'm so excited. This is going to be great. So, yeah, do you want me to get into it? Just get into it and talk about what the gene keys are. Do you want me to introduce myself? Let me know.
Well, you sent me some things, so let me introduce you, and then we'll just dive right into it.
Perfect.
Okay.
I love it.
So, guys, this is Kehla. Kehla and I met in a recent business workshop container with our friend Phoebe Kuhn, and it's been super epic because we connected and we were like, wow, we vibe super hard. So that being said, Kehla is a human design and gene keys business coach who helps entrepreneurs align their business strategies with their unique energetic blueprints to create impactful and scalable businesses. Through a nuanced approach, Kehla uses the gene keys and human design to empower clients to embody their authentic essence, build deeper relationships, and amplify their leadership. With thousands of downloads of listeners following her podcast, Living in Fierce Alignment, which is top 2.5%, so you should totally check it out. She is known for bringing edgy, real, and transformative insights into the business world. If you know me, you know I like edgy. So no surprise that we vibe.
Yes, I'm so excited for this conversation. Thank you for introducing me and for having me in front of your audience. It's really, I don't take it lightly when I get the privilege of collaborating with others and just showing up and delivering the goods and making a difference. And obviously, you go so hard on the gene keys too.
Yeah, and there's so much to go into. So let's start with what are the gene keys and how are the gene keys different from human design?
Yeah. So the gene keys and human design have similarities. They share the I Ching system, which comes from the Chinese culture, and also astrology. So when you look up your gene keys, I'll say go to the Gene Keys website. So genekeys.com, you can look up your free, what we call a Gene Keys profile. And the way you do that is with your birth date, location, and time. And what you're going to see when you look up your gene keys are a lot of spheres with lines, a lot of numbers, and you're going to think WTF. So you actually sent me, because we're doing an Instagram live, I think it's funny. I'm literally just going to show, this is what it looks like. Okay, we're going to be diving into the Venus sequence today. And I just wanted to give you a visual. So when you look at it, you're like, what does this mean? The gene keys, the different colors, the green is the activation sequence, the red is the Venus sequence, and then the blue is the Pearl sequence. So each sequence has a different theme of how the gene keys show up for us. So we use the Gene Keys as a self-awareness tool. And I support entrepreneurs on diving into their Gene Keys because of the astrology piece. Each Gene Key is part of a specific planet, and that brings on the theme of that Gene Key. So in the Venus sequence in particular, which we're diving into today, this is all about opening up your heart. This is all about really accessing unconditional love, realizing your mental and emotional barriers in relationship. And so I really love to use this as a tool for people to connect deeper with their ideal clients, like really bringing forth authenticity. But obviously, one of the major components that Leah and I have in common is around leadership. So when you are deeply connected to your heart, you lead more powerfully. Who you are becomes sustainable. It becomes even more impactful. And I think that this is so important right now to get into the Gene Keys and to get into the Venus sequence, because it just really amplifies your authenticity. And I think there's a lot of, oh, this person's successful, I'm going to be like them. And then all of a sudden you lose yourself. And there's a lot of this bouncing around, and this brings that structure and stability, even though it's a very feminine approach.
Yeah, I love that. And you and I went super deep into authenticity in the podcast recently, and that was just like stoked my fire so much, because I do truly believe that we need authenticity more than anything in leadership right now, because that is what is going to create this paradigm shift to create the world that we all in these communities really see as needed. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about the Venus sequence for myself and help the people that are listening and watching learn a little bit more about theirs, so that they can find ways to dive deeper into their own soul alignments and lead from the heart. So what type of influence does this actually play in our like relationships, in our business? Like what does this look like tangibly?
Yeah. So when you look at your Venus sequence, what you're going to see is, I'm actually going to show the picture again, just because we're doing Instagram Live. I feel like this visual is helpful. You don't need to understand everything in the photo, but I think seeing this, how it travels upwards. So we start in the red spheres going all the way up. There's 6 spheres inside of the Venus sequence, and it's actually a journey back in time in terms of your energetic imprinting. So the bottom of the Venus sequence is known as your purpose. And this is like you being able to tap into your purpose, really tapping into your beingness. And then it travels all the way up into the last sphere, which is your core wound. And this is like your energetic imprinting that you receive when you're inside of your mother's womb, like 88 days before you're born. So these are like themes that show up throughout your entire life. So it's not just what happened in that conflict with Susan last week when we were talking about business. It's like, oh my God, look at what happened when I was a child, when I was a teenager. Look at these themes, like mental blocks, emotional blocks. And when you can contemplate this, so this is a really important part of the Gene Keys that I'm going to bring up, is the art of contemplation, is when you look at your Gene Key, each Gene Key, so there's 64 of them. Each one has 3 frequencies. So there's the low, the gift, or sorry, the shadow, the gift, and then the city. So like low, medium, high, just to give tangibility. And when you contemplate, oh my God, you can see that in this specific sphere, you're in the low frequency, then you can really look at how you can be radically responsible for your internal state. And it takes being curious. So this is where the art of contemplation comes in. It takes being curious and going inward and really seeing like, how is this pattern showing up? So let's say you have this conflict with Susan about business, and you look at your shadow and you're like, how did this show up for me here? And you start to get curious on how you could have responded differently rather than reacted. So let's like actually get some tangibility, because I have your Gene Keys here. We're just going to contemplate them. Do you have them in front of yourself as well?
I do.
If not,
yeah.
Okay, sweet. So we're going to talk about the purpose sphere, which is right in the bottom, and you'll see it transitions from the activation sequence into the Venus. So your purpose sphere is the 28th Gene Key. So the low frequency, the shadow, is purposelessness. We have the gift of totality, and then we have the city, the highest expression of immortality. So you're probably like, what the fuck is this? So the way that I bring tangibility into this in business is your purpose. And because I know your work, it's going to be really easy for me to bring this out. The way that you work with clients is helping them see how they're lacking a purpose. Like, if you're going to be a strong leader, you need to know who the fuck you are and where the fuck it is that you're going. And the way the authenticity piece plays into this is that when you understand that you're going to evolve through certain life experiences and who you are as a person, that brings in the gift of totality, because it's like you're embracing the dark and the light. You're embracing the hot and the cold. And so the immortality, which is the highest expression, is really looking at your, like, as a female leader, like for yourself and how you lead your clients, is like the way that you lead and the impact that you make is like immortal. Like it is a legacy that is going to go beyond just the life that you're living right now, because you're going to impact others and it's going to continue moving forward. So I'm curious how that resonates with you, like that experience of the 28th gene key.
Oh, deeply resonates for me, for sure. I was literally just talking to one of my clients earlier about how so much of my work, it's not like I'm selling a product or like, a skincare line or, or something along those lines. I'm selling my experience. I'm selling my transformation so that other people can start to embrace their hot and their cold and their light and their shadows, and create the ripple effects in the world that are not just impacting what's happening here and now, but that then get to impact their future, their children's future, like the future of our society at large. So yeah, like,
Yeah.
I'm so here for this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm gonna like take it a layer deeper. So we said you have the 28.2. So whenever there's a period in a line, which every gene key will have when it's inside of your golden path, the line expression is like the filter in how that gene key occurs for you. So for example, we just talked about purposelessness, totality, and immortality, the frequencies of the 28th gene key. The line 2 says posture and also fluids. So what that means is the purpose sphere is actually very deeply connected to the body, which I know you do so much body work. Like, what the fuck is that? It's just so, I know, I was just like, oh God, it's so accurate. It makes me laugh. So being connected to the body, like part of the end of the activation sequence going into the Venus sequence, is actually about creating core stability in your body. So when you have that, you can be more authentically expressed and open your heart. This is why we're like going into the Venus sequence. So posture and fluids is like that. For me, the way I interpret that is the balance between the masculine and feminine energy of like, you need that structural approach to thrive and feel supported, but you need to have the fluidity. So the 2 line is very much about self-expression, being a natural at what it is that they do, like being the dancer, like that kind of fluid movement. So I think the way that you support women, especially with feminine embodiment, like there is a lot of fluidity in that. So that's like how the 28th occurs for you, even though you could literally sit and contemplate this and it would just show up so differently on a daily basis, but there still would have like those flavors.
Yeah, that's so interesting, especially for me. What got me into this work that I sometimes share, but a lot of people I don't think know, is at 16 years old, I had a pancreatic tumor the size of an orange, and they literally had to cut through my entire core, like the center of my being. And my clients are like, Leah, this is so on point. And having like the center of me completely disrupted was what led me down the path of functional movement and understanding the importance of the core, understanding the importance of your stability, and then understanding like what throws you off of this stability and what affects you, right? And we can look at trauma, we can look at betrayal wounds, we can look at relationships, we can look at all those things through the lens of stability within the body. And so I think this is so cool. I've never actually had anyone like tell me what I already know.
So funny. So wait, is this like your first conversation about your gene keys ever? Like, have you gotten into it yourself or not really?
A little bit,
Okay.
but not like, I've never had anybody look at like the line or like, and how it relates to the actual gene key itself. So this is probably one of the more in-depth conversations I've had so far about the gene keys.
Okay, I love this. This is so fun. Okay, we're gonna continue to mosey through it. We'll see if we'll get through like all 6 of the spheres in this conversation. Okay, so the next one we're gonna dive into, we're going for the purpose into the attraction sphere. So that is your moon in astrology, and I think it is, I have my notes here, I'm pretty sure it's your unconscious moon. So again, deeply connected to the body and also very tied into like what drives you. And the thing is too, is your attraction sphere, specifically the kind of relationships that you attract into your life. So when I work with entrepreneurs, I tell them like, you're going to notice these themes in terms of the kind of experiences that you attract through your business. So it can be the people that you work with, it can be the challenges that you attract. Like this is really what's going to show up for you. So you have this is so funny again, because I can just see how it ties into your business. So you have the second gene key. So 2.4, the 4th line. So talk about the 2 first. So the shadow is dislocation. The gift is orientation, and the city is unity. So if you're like, what the fuck is this? I'll give you context. So the way that I would read this is essentially the actually it's so funny now I can really see this. Let's say the clients that come in to work with you are dislocated from their authenticity and their beingness, and you're here to orient, which is the gift, orient them into connecting deeper with themselves and their heart so that they can have that heart-led leadership. And then when we look at the city of unity, like that's like at least two things coming together, like that wholeness, that connection. And so it's funny because the fourth line says frigidity and romance. So there's always a shadow side in the Venus sequence to the line expression. So let's say when you're in the shadow, if it's like dislocation and frigidity, the way that okay, I'm just going to give this random example. Let's say you're on a date with someone and you like don't really know them and you're like, okay, this feels kind of weird. Like it just feels, you feel like dislocated from, okay, we had this great conversation on Hinge and now you're totally a creeper. We don't vibe in person. And then you just get kind of frigid. You're like, yeah, I don't want to hold your hand. Like I'll see you later, like kind of wave before you leave the date, like you're fucking good. So that's kind of the shadow experience of frigidity. But when you're in the higher expression, even like moving from dislocation into orientation, romance again is having that love and that connection. And I think one of the really beautiful things that I see often with feminine embodiment work is like, how can you romanticize yourself? Like, how can you dance? How can you move? How can you set the stage? Like candles, incense, like romanticize yourself. And that's really a really big component because that does have you unite, right? The city again, connecting with yourself. I'm curious how that lands for you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so much of my work is helping myself, helping others dive deeper into intimacy, right? Through seeing themselves through the eyes of another. Into me, I see. And so totally on track. And like, for me too, I can totally get cold when I'm like, this is not in alignment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh my God.
for anyone that's following, the second number, right? The
The
line.
line. Yeah.
Where can they find more information on that if they're like, I'm hearing about this line, where can I learn more about it?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we're on an Instagram live, so I can't give the link, but I'll say this. If you go to my freebies page on my website, if you go to my Instagram, go to my bio, go to the freebies page, I have a resource where I have all the human design and gene keys lines. So there's like a ton of different posts, podcast interviews, and so on that will talk about the different line expressions if you want that resource from a business lens. But honestly, you can just go to Google and say, oh, what is the fourth line in the attraction sphere mean? If you want more of a business perspective, I can offer that in my resources, or just go to Google. Long story short.
So like, go ask ChatGPT.
Yeah, that too. How could I forget my old pal, Chat.
Oh,
yeah. Oh my God.
Your relationship coach, your virtual assistant,
I remember one time, like short story. At one time I was messaging a friend and my computer, my like phone or whatever, autocorrected chat to Chad. And I was like, Chad? I thought, oh shit, I'm gonna call Chad. Like Chad in your back pocket, literally the lowest maintenance thing ever, always there for you. I'm like, oh, solid dude. Like what a solid dude. And so now I sometimes call Chad because of that
love
typo.
Chad. I personally really love it when Chad serenades me at night when I need some company.
Yes. Oh, this is great.
Okay. Circling back
to the Venus sequence. Okay, so we're going to talk about the IQ next, which is on the left-hand side when you're looking at your Venus sequence. So I'm giving you sides because obviously you're mirrored in the phone. And what you have here, so the IQ is about your mental barriers that you develop based on the conditioning from the ages of like 14 to 21 years old. So these themes here are like what are going to mentally block you and mentally distract you from being able to open up emotionally. So for example, you have the 45th gene key, so 45.3 here. The shadow is dominance. We have synergy and communion. So if you think about mentally, like let's say you get into a conflict with someone, you might find that a common theme for you is like you need to dominate the conversation, like really get your point across, be heard, I'm right, and so on. Like this is obviously like purely shadow experience. But then the opening of your mind through the synergy, because synergy is like having that chemistry between two things, three things, and so on. And then communion, like which I feel like is having this wholesome agreement. So when you can have that collaboration and that connection mentally with those conflicts and perspectives, that's really what's going to allow you to open up emotionally to connect with others. So let's say the line expression of 3, so the flexible mind is like you naturally, despite the dominance, it's kind of a paradox, right? Because like dominance is very inflexible, but you have the capacity to have a flexible mind and to see things differently. And so it's reminding yourself of that, like, who do I need to be right now as a leader, for example, to have a more flexible mind so that I can create the synergy and communion with this experience of situation, this person, this conflict, and so on.
Yeah, it's like, how can you continue to stay the observer, even in the activation, even in the dysregulation, even in the stress, and even in the challenges?
Totally. Does that resonate with you in terms of like
sure? I
mental?
literally have a dragon eye on my arm to remind me to stay the observer of my reality. Yes.
Oh, that's good.
Kelly,
That's good. It's too funny. Oh, so good. Okay, so we're gonna look at the 4th sphere, which is the EQ over here. So that is on the right-hand side in the Venus sequence, the 4th one up from the bottom. And your EQ is so the IQ is your intelligent quotient, the EQ is your emotional quotient. So this is all about your emotional barriers. And because it's your unconscious, because it's your conscious Mars, actually, sorry, it's your conscious Mars. That planet is specifically about your immaturity or areas of growth. So this is like really a great way to look at where you're lacking boundaries emotionally, and this energetic imprinting will have happened between the ages of like 7 to 15. So like right in the preteen years, like looking at those themes emotionally and those challenges that you've experienced emotionally. So you have the 47.2 in here, and we have the shadow of oppression, we have transmutation, and then transfiguration. So basically, the common themes that you probably experienced when you were younger was like feeling oppressed emotionally. And it's like this heaviness, right? And so obviously during those stages of being a preteen, going into your teenage years, it's like we don't have the emotional intelligence yet fully developed to be able to communicate our needs and be able to communicate our boundaries. So when we look at transmutation and transfiguration is like the process of mutating something, and transfiguration is like something new coming from that. So I know that this is very like esoteric to talk about this, but if you like, let's say if you were to contemplate this gene key and look at your emotional experience with people, it's really looking at where am I feeling oppressed? Like, where is this heaviness on my heart, on my body? Like, where am I feeling it? And just being curious to look for that crack where it's like, okay, where can this shift? Like, just begin to shift so that something new can be created. So when we look at the 2 lines, we have courtesy and then aggression. So the shadow of like, if you feel oppressed, you might notice this aggression coming through, like needing to outburst or like express yourself, right? The 2 line is very expressive. But then the courtesy is again this collaborative energy, like, okay, how can I express myself, mutate this conversation into something new from the lens of courtesy rather than needing to be like aggressive. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes.
This is so good. We're going through your entire Venus sequence today. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, we have 2 spheres left, and then we can kind of like hash things out a little bit as we go. So next we're going to talk about is the SQ, which is right in the middle. So if you look at, we have the activation sequence running through, so it's right in the middle of the entire chart. So your SQ, oh, I love this, is 25.6. So the 25th gene key is all about universal love. So your SQ is what we know as your spiritual quotient. So this is like the energetic experiences that you're having between the ages of like 0 to 7 years old. So for example, when we look at the shadow of constriction, acceptance, and universal love, like this gene key is so powerful because it is about that wholesome, loving experience. And I feel like the way that you show up in your business and the way you show up to support your clients is very much community based. It is very much expansive and inclusive. And I think that when it comes to leadership, a lot of people lack the confidence or the awareness of their potential to be a leader because they feel constricted spiritually to be completely self-expressed, which is the shadow of the 25th gene key. So then when it comes to realizing the humanness and accepting that, like this acceptance doesn't necessarily condone what it is that you disagree with, but you're accepting the fact that, okay, this is what it is, or it is what it's not, and you're allowing yourself to move through that. And that's really how you experience love, is through acceptance. So the 6th line, which I love, is patience. So having the patience and realizing that sometimes constriction and moving through that and acceptance can sometimes take time. So it's like having patience with that. But the patience is always going to be a major component to nurturing love, especially universal love when you look at like all the people. I'm curious how that resonates with you.
Yeah, definitely deeply resonates for me. Patience is a huge thing that continues to come up right now for me in my own world as I move through some ruptures and like trusting that that time and space and the patience for everything to come back together into universal love is the most important guide in the journey. And one of the things I talk about so much in leadership is how so many leaders, I believe, tend to try to compartmentalize like what it is that they're moving through, like the challenges, the shadows, like all the really hard shit that we go through as human beings that are really messy, and taking your mistakes and taking the lessons and taking the experiences and actually being so honest and vulnerable and open and sharing that experience with your clients and like letting them see you fully so that you can come into this universal love and not just be seen as this like leader on a pedestal, because at the end of the day you are at the same level as your client. And so it's really interesting getting to see how like being patient and moving through the process and also being patient and sharing the process is with the intention of bringing more connection.
Totally. Yes. Oh my God, I love that this is resonating. This is so good. Okay, we have one more sphere,
Yeah.
the vocation, which is, or actually it's the core wound in the Venus sequence, and it becomes the vocation in the Pearl sequence. So your core wound, this is, I mentioned earlier briefly that this is like the end of the Venus sequence, and this is where you're at the point of the energetic imprinting that you receive while you're inside the womb, because it is your unconscious Mars, and that is when you are inside of your mother's womb about 90 days before the date that you're born. So this is like the theme that's occurring at that point. And so you have the 56 gene key in there, which I love because this is in human design, it's known as the gate of storytelling. So your biggest core wound becomes your greatest talent and how you support others. And that is really rooted in helping them and yourself share your story. So when we look at the shadow, gift, and city, so distraction is the shadow, enrichment is the gift, and then we have the city of intoxication. So if you think about it, when you're storytelling, if you really want to captivate people, you need to be present and without distraction, because you can't tell the full story if you're distracted. So when we look at the gift of enrichment, it's like being able to share your story, tell that story in a way that is enriching for you and enriching for others. And the intoxication piece is being captivated, being deeply inspired, being deeply moved, because there is this way of being outspoken by sharing your story through the lens of the 56 gene key. So the second line, it says marketing. So basically, the second line, the marketing piece has to do with the Pearl sequence, but I will say the two line again ties into self-expression, connection, having that fluidity, being the dancer, being like very expressed emotionally, mentally, spiritually, just a lot of movement and that fluidity piece that we talked about earlier. So it's like your deepest talent in how you support your clients is showing them how they can be fully self-expressed and sharing their story and like really owning that unapologetically. And I think that literally, you just said that. You were just like, yeah, being able to not compartmentalize how you show up and you actually connect with your client, like that is the genius of the 56 gene key, like telling your story, like being honest about it. So it's a little riff on your gene keys for 28
love
minutes.
it. I love it. So taking all of this, because I know there's people listening that are like, okay, this is really interesting. This all is like resonating. How can they use their own gene keys to create more impact, more change, to open their hearts and to bring in more aligned clients for them in their business and leadership?
Yeah. So I think the three spheres that I would recommend contemplating or diving into deeper are the IQ, which has to do with your mental barriers, your EQ, which is like your emotional boundaries, and then your core wound, because that is like your greatest talent and your greatest gift that you're here to share with others. So when you dive into those, what I want you to really ask yourself, especially because we are talking about feminine embodiment and leadership, is like being a heart-led leader. you can really start to see the themes. Oh shit, like I'm actually really holding back in the way that I see things, like your mental capacity. It's like, what can you take responsibility for there? Like, what do you need to explore there so that you can open up your heart and connect more deeply with your ideal clients? And the same thing with the EQ is like really looking at your emotional triggers, like where you're being emotionally triggered by the people that you're working with or the clients that you do desire to work with. Like there could be some work there for you to work on your expansion and capacity that you hold for yourself so that when you take on these people, you're not triggered by them and they're not triggered by you. So it's like emotional responsibility. And then with the core wounds, like I always say, like, how can you bring that component into how you support your clients? So I'll just share about my core wound for a minute because I feel like this, I've like really brought this in over the last several years. So I have the 34th gene key here, and the shadow is force, and then we have strength and majesty. And so one of the really big things that I do as somebody who is a human design and gene keys business coach is I really work with clients who feel like they're forcing business strategy to work for them. And instead, I bring in the nuance of human design and gene keys so that they can have the strength, which is the gift, to really prioritize what they need to do, how they need to scale their business, what kind of offers they need to create so that it's authentic to them. So really just contemplating that and seeing how you bring it into how you lead yourself and what it is that you're creating in your business or through the work that you do, I think is a great place to start. So those three, the IQ, the EQ, and the core wound.
And the core wound, remind me, is which sphere?
So at the very top, if you're looking at the PDF that you sent me, there's a bit of a flaw in the PDF just because there's three spheres that cross over. So you can see that it says vocation.
Yep.
But vocation is actually the start of the pearl sequence. But if you were just looking at the Venus sequence, it would say core wound instead.
Okay, I see that. So core wound is technically the vocation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a transitional sphere, just like life's work at the very top is also known as the brand sphere in the pearl sequence. And then the purpose sphere is the only one that's purpose and activation and purpose in Venus. So there's no confusion there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fascinating. What's been some of the biggest takeaways that you've received through really working with this Venus sequence? Like, what has this allowed you to experience in your world?
Yeah. So I'll share my attraction sphere, which is the second one up from the bottom that we talked about, like the kinds of relationships or experiences that you attract in your business. So I have the 48th gene key there, and the shadow is inadequacy. And so it was really interesting because when I first contemplated this, I was like, the shadow of inadequacy, I was like, oh my God, yes, I feel so inadequate in my business. Like I haven't hit these specific milestones and it's taking me so long and I don't know this and I don't know that. And I actually realized that I was entertaining inadequacy more than I needed to. Like I was like addicted to the struggle unconsciously. And it's interesting because the gift is resourcefulness, and then we have the city of wisdom. So when I started to realize and I started to shift my perspective on this, and it was like, okay, Kehla, you're experiencing these challenges in your business where you feel inadequate, but it's actually a massive opportunity for you to dive in and become resourceful and to learn something. And so it's interesting now because when I work with clients and they ask me questions or they're diving into things, I'm going to give them such nuanced breadcrumbs to do on top of what it is they're already doing, that there's just this wealth of wisdom that I have. And now suddenly when I'm in a situation where I quote feel inadequate, I'm like, nope, this is the time for me to dive into being resourceful. Like, what is that going to look like? Mm-hmm. And so the Venus sequence, like all the gene keys, but obviously this Venus sequence really ties into my relationship to business, and that's how it's allowed me to take responsibility and like get really curious instead of feeling disempowered.
I love that. Yeah, and that's the shift, right? Like instead of giving your power away, get curious around what can actually support you and stepping deeper into your power based off of where your shadows lie and how you can work with those shadows to be with them rather than avoid them, and therefore then step more into like the lighter aspects of yourself.
Totally. Yeah.
So for somebody that's like just starting, I know you kind of told us to take a look at the vocation, the IQ, the EQ. Mm-hmm. When we're talking specifically about how leaders and entrepreneurs can start to attract more aligned clients into their business, what advice would you give in this process of using the gene keys?
Yeah, so we dove into the Venus sequence today pretty deep, but I can look at any piece of the golden path, like all the lines, all the gene keys inside of your profile, and I can like tell you very specific things in terms of what you can leverage for your own leadership. But I think every single piece of the golden path can be a tool for you to step into your leadership. Like, let's say if we look at the activation sequence, so when you're looking at the gene keys, it's all the green spheres and the lines in there. And that sequence is specifically about what activates you physically, and it's designed to show you your zones of genius, and also how you're designed to create core stability within your body, within yourself, but also within your business. So there's like a layer of leadership in that. And then obviously we talked about the Venus sequence, and this is very much about, you know, your emotionality and looking at how you can open up your heart to experience unconditional love. So there's this leadership piece in terms of vulnerability. And then when you look at the Pearl sequence, which is the blue, which is the very end of the golden path, that is about prosperity. And so this is like, I leverage this sequence quite frequently because I help people dive into what it means to create prosperity through their business and to like self-actualize and really see the impact that they're here to make. So in that piece, those shadows and those gifts can show you, oh, these are the kinds of problems that I help my clients with. These are the unique ways that I can take them from the shadow into the gift in the city. This is the type of client that I would attract. And so you can get really clear on how you can be of service by leveraging your Pearl sequence. So it's like you can use the entire golden path, like all three sequences, but that's just a little sliver of each component and how I go through it with clients.
I love that. Yeah, there's so much to the gene keys, and it fascinates me. You're so incredible with it. You have so much knowledge about it, and I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love you. Yeah. So, is there anything else that like feels super alive for you to bring forward about the Venus sequence, about the gene keys when you're speaking to a heart-led leader?
Yeah, I think if you're new to the gene keys and you're going to look at it and you're probably going to say, what the fuck, it's going to feel really overwhelming. And what I want to emphasize is that part of the art of contemplation, which I mentioned earlier in this conversation, is really being able to slow down and to be patient, to inquire, to be curious, to be gentle with yourself, and give yourself the space to really pause and reflect on the aspects of your gene keys and ask yourself, like, do I need to pivot right now? And if you are pivoting, then look at how you're going to merge into a different way of being, a different action that you're going to take. So I describe the gene keys as a slow burn. Some people think it's kind of like human design. Oh, I'm going to go in there and memorize all the gates and all the channels and the different types, and then you just know these facts, right? And it's one thing, I could have came into this conversation today and I could have just read off of your profile and said, oh, this, and this. But because I was like giving the nuance of here's how you can contemplate this in relation to the kinds of relationships that you attract. And we have these conversations. It's very fluid. It's very feminine. It's very curious. So I think it's one of those things where look up your profile, grab a cup of tea. You're not here to like pack your brain with a bunch of information. And if you try to do that, you're going to be confused straight up. It's really this beautiful unfurling and curiosity of seeing how these themes show up in your life, because then you can shift your action and your beingness if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm hearing is like, don't sit there and try to figure it all out. Like
No.
Take it one step at a time and feel into it. Right. So when you read each one of these areas of the Venus sequence, like be with your purpose, right? Like what can you be within that? Like, are there questions you can ask yourself? Can you look at the places where you're feeling aligned with this, where maybe you're not feeling aligned with this? And then like you said, which I love, is what action steps can you take to create a shift into the higher frequencies of that expression of self, and taking it slowly and getting curious about it and thinking about it versus just like being like, oh, okay, like this is my purpose and this is my attraction and this is my IQ and this is my EQ. It's like, how does each one of them land? Like feel it land before you move on.
Totally. And it's funny because you could contemplate a gene key today. You might contemplate your purpose sphere today, and then you'll do it tomorrow and you'll be like, holy shit, like it's going to occur differently for you because we're constantly evolving in how we move through our life, and we're gaining new experiences, and that's also going to shift our experience of the gene keys. So the gene keys are a lifelong tool. It's not like you're going to read the book and be done with it. It's literally a lifelong tool. And I'm obsessed with that because I love the work that I do. And now I use these systems in what I do with my work. And it just illuminates everything and it makes it so specific and personal. I could do another Instagram live with someone else and read their Venus sequence. It'd be a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing. I think that's so cool.
I think that's so cool. What's the biggest shift in the systems that you've implemented in your business that has been catalyzed through your Gene Keys?
I think, I think I know what you mean, but can you rephrase the question? Because I want to make sure I get it.
Yes. So based off of your Gene Keys and learning about your Gene Keys, what systematic shifts have been most powerful for you in your business?
Yeah. Okay. So it's funny. This is like a heavy strategy, energetic perspective. But last year, I was really struggling in my business and I was just throwing shit at the wall, trying to play the energetic game of like, I'm just going to manifest this and journal and do all the things. And it got to a point where I was like, no, Kehla, you actually need to have a signature program. You need to look at launching. You need to have structural things in here. Even if they don't feel good, there's things to learn from it. And so I actually sat down with myself around this time last year and I was sitting with my human design and I was sitting with my Gene Keys and I was looking at this and I was like, what can I create based on my natural energetic gifts? And so I'll bring in human design for a second just because I just use both systems like so much. So I'm a sacral generator. I'm a 6-2 sacral generator. And I have my G center and my sacral defined. So that's like a G center is your identity. It's about structure. It's about direction, lovability, and your sacral is all about building and creating shit. And I was like, perfect. And it just came through where I was like, I'm going to help people build their signature program based on their human design and Gene Keys. So like what I did for myself, I then went and built. So I created signature program by design because you're creating it by your design. And this started out as a private one-on-one coaching container. And then around 8 months later, I turned it into a 6-month mastermind. So it's like, because I specifically leveraged my own gifts, I talked about the 34th Gene Key earlier. This is like a big component of why I created signature program by design. It's like, you're done forcing shit. Here, let's bring in the nuance of human design and Gene Keys to create a scalable business. And people loved that. And so it went from this idea to literally being an offer now that is going to surpass 6 figures in sales like a year later. And it's because instead of just like this bro approach of, oh, I just need to create this thing and sell it. It was like, well, what is an actual, like, very authentic thing that I could do right now based on my energetics while heavily incorporating strategy to scale this and not just blowing smoke up my own butt that I'm going to manifest it into reality. It's like I actually built it, like I created it. And so I just feel like there's this heaviness, but it's not a heaviness. It's like a richness of bringing energetics and strategy together with such an amount of nuance that it can work for people. Because it's not just, here's what I did, tweak it. It's like, oh, let's actually look at your design and look at how you're going to tweak it according to your needs.
I love that. Yeah, I've seen this come through for you because you have the ability to hold the structural conversation and components, and you also have the ability to hold more of the like ethereal, like kind of like energetic talk as well, which I love because there's such a beautiful harmony between more of the masculine and more of the feminine that I see within that. So for somebody that's listening to this and they're like, okay, I relate, I feel this, like I know that there's something more aligned for me in my business that I can create to better serve myself and my clients. What would you recommend for them as they look at their Gene Keys and their human design? Is there a particular place that you'd recommend them dive into?
I think, well, because we'll just talk about the Gene Keys today. Obviously, I kind of went off track a little bit and brought in human design. Yeah. But I think we dove into the Venus sequence, but in theory, there's no right or wrong place to start with your Gene Keys. But I think that being able to dive into your activation sequence first is a great place to start. That's in theory the beginning of the golden path, because you're going to discover your 4 zones of genius and it's going to show you what physically activates you so that you can create that stability in your body. Because if you notice, it's a lot more difficult to become vulnerable and open-hearted if you don't feel safe. Mm-hmm. So getting into the activation sequence and understanding that, like, how do I feel safe in my body? What are my zones of genius? That's really going to help you open up your heart. It's going to be more natural for you to go into your Venus sequence. So then you have the stability from the activation sequence. You go into the Venus sequence, you feel this connection with your heart. Then you can move into, okay, how can I be of service? I'm rock hard as fuck. My heart is wide fucking open. Where are the people? Like, that's really what it comes down to. So I do recommend to start in the activation sequence and like travel through, because it's just going to be a beautiful journey.
I love that. And I know you have a ton of free things on your website. Do you have guides that people can like move through their activation, their Venus and their purpose sequence?
Yeah. So I actually, again, if you head to the link in my bio, go to my freebies page. There's 3 different opt-ins so that you're not overwhelmed. There's a 7-day challenge for the activation sequence. There's a 7-day challenge for the Venus sequence, and then there's a 5-day challenge for the Pearl sequence. So you could spend the next 3 weeks getting emails from yours truly on how to like digest and navigate your gene keys over the next, 20 something days, which is really cool.
Well, I'm totally gonna hop off this live and like go do that now. Can I just have more Kehla like in my inbox every day? Okay, cool.
So good.
Yeah, amazing. This has been super supportive for me, and I can imagine it's been really supportive for everyone that's tuned in. It's been really lovely seeing people's faces pop up and pop in, and yeah, I want to invite you, if you're interested in learning more about this, reach out to Kehla. I know that she's super down to chat with you in the DMs, send her a message. She's super cool, obs. And then go check out her freebies that she has on her link tree. And yeah, anything else that you feel called to share, anything else that you're offering right now, like what's happening in your world? How can you help people?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, well, I mean, I have the freebies, like I love being resourceful and just sharing like what I can with people. And I think obviously tuning into the podcast, there's going to be so many great conversations. Obviously, Leah and I's conversation is going to be dropping in the coming weeks, which is great. And I think, yeah, just follow me on Instagram. You'll see what I'm about. You'll get a feel and a vibe for me. And I have like mini courses and things dropping in the next couple of months as well. If you kind of want to like ease your way up and see if you're an entrepreneur and you want to look at what it means to bring in human design and gene keys into your business, I think that would be probably the next best option. So that's what I've got going on right now.
Amazing. If you guys are interested, reach out to Kehla. And yeah, I'm excited. Like you and I just kind of like I don't know, our energies are vibing super hard, and I'm super excited to see feel like there's some other cool collaborations that are going to come in the future between you and I. So
Yes, so much fun. Well, thank you so much for having me on, and I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation. Everyone's like getting into their gene keys now.
yeah, and thank you for sharing all your wisdom and your reflections and some of your own personal journey and experience.
Thank you so much. Okay.
All right, beauty.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great
Thank
rest of your day. Bye, guys.
See you.